Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about 5 things that abstract painting has taught me about life. Before we get into it, if you notice that the light is changing from like warm to cool, that is because my light source is malfunctioning and it randomly changes the color temperature, so I'm really sorry about that, but it's the only one I have. This is not the kind of long form video that I've made before on this channel, but I really have gotten into my artwork a lot more over the past couple of years. I want to dedicate more time and energy to it, and I want to start making some videos about it here on this channel, so hopefully you'll come along for that ride with me. I'm sorry that I haven't posted a long form video in a long time, but life was lifing, and I like to take a pause when everything tells me that I need to, but then I always kind of come back to it. I'll just add one more preface, which is to say that I have been making art since I was a little kid. It's really like something that's a deep passion for me, and again, I've only just started posting about it here on this channel, and I've posted about other topics, mostly like permaculture, DIYs, and different stories from my life. But art is something that's like always been at the core of my being, and so you're gonna see a lot more of that moving forward. I've also just learned that I reached 500 subscribers recently, which is so awesome. So thank you to those of you who continued subscribing even when I wasn't posting videos and who have recently subscribed. So without further ado, these are 5 things that abstract painting has taught me about life. So the first one is that abstract painting helps you explore your spirituality. For me, I've always been a really deeply spiritual person, but I've always struggled to explain what I believe to other people and even to myself. It's always been just more of like a feeling of there's like some kind of energy or power beyond myself and beyond what I can comprehend, and I get like little hints of it here or there. I've never had a way to really explore what that means. I do practice meditation sometimes, but I find myself more drawn to like mindful activities. And the most mindful one that I've been doing recently is abstract art. And I've found myself like as I paint and watch the paint kind of like flow together and create these patterns, I find myself creating images of things that like suggest things about the spiritual world to me. And again, I might explain this better later on. I'm not quite sure how to put it into words, but it's like I'm learning about the world beyond what's perceivable through my art. And it's like such an intimate, cool process. And then at the end of it, you're left with an artifact, so like a piece of artwork that commemorates that moment you had of exploration, of like spiritual exploration. And it's probably the main thing that has kind of pulled me towards abstract painting and kept me on that journey even when things have been difficult, because it's just such a cool spiritual process. If you're an abstract painter and you're watching this and you have a similar experience, please let me know in the comments, because I would love to hear about other people's experiences. Number 2 is learning the lesson of finding that fine balance between controlling something and letting something go. And I know that sounds really vague, but in a very practical sense, when you're doing abstract painting, the idea is to have these organic shapes that look like they just somehow materialized on the canvas. And I mean, this might not be the case for all abstract painters, but for me, it's almost like I don't want it to look like I painted it. I want it to look like this art piece just like appeared. And so you want the shapes, I want the shapes to look really organic and natural, but to get that look, I actually have to control where the paint goes. So sometimes I'm doing that by moving the canvas or scraping or using paint brushes or, making markings intentionally. But if I am too intentional, then it doesn't have like the proper flow and geometry to keep you interested. So when you get too in your head about abstract painting and you try to control where the paint is going too much, like you overwork the painting, it loses its essence. It loses that magic of abstract painting. And that's one of the reasons why abstract painting is so hard. I think that, people who haven't tried it before may think it's easy because the shapes look very organic and like easy to make. But actually it's not easy at all to get that right balance of organic looseness but controlled movement of paint and color. Is actually pretty difficult. I haven't like fully learned that lesson yet. I'm still very much on the journey, but I can translate that lesson to kind of like life in general, thinking about the balance of what things can we control and at what point do we just let go, and finding those points of like wisely using our energy to make the best impact in life. So sometimes when I'm facing a tough decision and I feel like I'm like spinning my wheels about something and I just can't figure it out, then I think like, okay, well maybe I just need to let go for a little bit, step back and see what happens. So I like that. I like that kind of painting lesson translates into a bigger life lesson. Okay, number 3 is patience. Abstract painting requires a lot of patience. Even though, again, it looks like you maybe did it in like 5 seconds, my process at least has been that I have to do many passes, and sometimes I just can't get it right, so I literally have to like put the painting aside for weeks to months and then come back to it later and do like multiple more passes before I'm happy with it. And that's a huge investment of time and energy. Before I did abstract paintings, I did more kind of like illustrative artwork. And with those, it's very clear when something is finished, like the image you have in your head, you get it on paper, you're drawing a person or a creature or a landscape, and it's done. But with abstract, there's often that feeling of like, it's not quite right, it needs a little more something. And so you have to keep doing multiple passes, do like another wash of color, another scrape, and then you have to wait for it to dry in between. So the patience lesson is definitely there. And for me, as a non-patient person, it's been like kind of torture sometimes. But then it's always worth it in the end when you get a piece out of it that you really like. So patience is a virtue, and I'm learning to have it. The 4th thing that abstract painting has taught me is intuitively understanding balance in terms of composition and color theory. So I have learned a little bit about composition and color theory in art classes. Whether that was like back in high school many moons ago or art classes that I've taken more recently. But I think with abstract painting, it kind of, if you have a good eye, it kind of teaches you those lessons intuitively. Like you will intuitively know when something is off balance or when colors just don't work together. And so by practicing, you kind of learn like which colors and tones will work well together, and you will learn when something looks off. So like the most common rule in composition is called the rule of thirds, which is where you want the focal point of your piece to be somewhere in like the third of a painting. So if you draw a grid with like 3 sections going this way and 3 sections going that way on a canvas, where those lines intersect, like in one of the corners, is where you want the attention of the viewer to be drawn to. And so I think even if you didn't know that rule, your eye would teach you that rule when you're doing abstract painting, because let's say you drew your big focal piece, your piece of interest, and you put it smack in the middle of the painting, and then you put it up on the wall, walked away. I think if you have that eye that can kind of sense when something is off, you would understand that maybe that is not the most pleasing position of your focal point. At least that's what I've learned. So For me, abstract painting is very much a dialogue where the painting tells you what needs to happen next. So if something's a little off balance, you're like, oh, that line it would be so much better if it was just a little bit higher, or that like really intricate, cool piece of contrast, I love it, but it really needs to be like moved down a little bit. And so over time, you kind of learn how to build that balance from the beginning of a piece and how to kind of establish balance early on, and then you can just be finessing later. And finally, the fifth lesson that it has taught me would be mindfulness. And it kind of connects to the first one about spirituality, but I think specifically mindfulness, focusing in on what that means, which is like the experience of living in the moment 100%. I feel that creating art, and specifically abstract art, really is like such a great example of that, because when you're in the moment, you're creating, like you're not focusing on the future, you're not thinking too much about what you envision in your head and how it has to be, and you have to pay close attention, especially if you're doing fluid acrylic, fluid abstract painting where paint is moving on the canvas. You only have moments to control it, right, before it starts to dry and set. So you really have to be in the moment there with the paint as it's moving and creating the piece of art. And so kind of time stands still in a way, or I don't know, like either time stands still or it passes very quickly and you don't even notice, but it's this like exhilarating feeling of living in the moment and not really knowing what's going to happen next, and like just being along for the ride, right? And I love that feeling, so I'm going to keep chasing it. If you have any other suggestions about videos that I could make about my artistic process or anything like that, please let me know. I do have a new art studio room, and I've been thinking I could make a video about some like affordable ways to set up an art studio in a spare room, because that's kind of the process that I went through. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end of this video if you did. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing and joining me on this artistic journey that I'm on. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!